Welcome to Season 7 of the Excel Still More podcast. I am your host, Chris Emerson, and I am here to encourage you in your faith and help you strengthen your relationships. Today's episode is sponsored by Statewide Mortgage. Tyler Cain has over 20 years of experience, and he can help you with a variety of home mortgage needs. You can reach him today at 813-380-8487. Thank you so much for listening in today. Let's get started. Welcome back to ESM. I'm really stoked to share today's topic. It's been a slow growth, I think would be the right words. I had a little grip on it last October and then forgot about it for a while and got a little extra motivation recently when I was in Florida, and so here we go. It's really not my idea. It belongs to a friend of mine named Will Speer. Will works with the Brandon Church, where I was a couple of weeks ago in Florida. And he and his wife, Juliana, are moving all the way up to Washington State, which will be really awesome this summer, and we're praying things go well for him. And last October, I was in Tampa doing some preaching and had lunch with a group of preachers at a Mexican food place, and Will was there. We started talking about his move and everything, very exciting. And he said, "Hey, Chris, I've got a podcast idea for you." And again, this was last October. He said, "Cleaning the plate." And I thought, well, we just got here, so give me a few minutes on that. But that's not what he was talking about at all. Will is a softball, baseball umpire. And he talked about how important it is when you first show up, in addition to just greeting people, being cordial, being prepared, being on time. It's important to walk to home plate, pull out your brush, and clean every corner of it before the game starts. And he went on to say that there are life applications of that, and he shared a few things. We didn't get a lot of time to talk about it. And I remember getting in the car thinking, man, I really do think there's something great there. And then I slept and woke up and it disappeared, just completely out of my mind all throughout the holidays into 2025. Then just a couple of days before heading to Brandon, so a couple weeks back, I was at one of Nick's baseball games. We're sitting right by home plate. The umpire comes out, slowly walks over to the plate and says, "Play ball." The plate was filthy. There had been practice and a game before ours, I think, and it just was half covered. The guy didn't seem to care. Now, I don't want to pass judgment on the guy, but he was clearly not in the best shape and was moving very slowly. And to me, it felt like it was just an exertion of energy he was not willing to expend. So after about an inning, though, we had some action at the plate and some things going on. And I'm going to tell you right now, by the second inning, you could not see the plate. I don't mean you could kind of see it and I'm saying it was dirty. I mean, from where we were sitting right beside it, you didn't know where the plate was, which means the umpire who's calling balls and strikes doesn't know where the plate is. The hitter doesn't know. The pitcher can't see it. Kids running in from third are running all over the plate. No, it wasn't that bad, but you couldn't see it at all. And he never cleaned it a single time. Now, I'll admit, I didn't think about Will's idea then, since that had been months back, but I remember thinking, that is unprofessional, and it says a lot, perhaps at least, about the guy. Well, it was like the next day, I get on a plane, I head out to Florida, have a great week. Will, everybody, he's a great pickleball player, by the way, and we got to talk quite a bit, and he said, hey, that idea, I want to flesh it out with you a bit, and he did, and it's really great. I can't wait to share it with you. It has a lot in common with an old D. Bowman book that I did a podcast on in 2019. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But it really keyed into me that a simple action like cleaning the plate, kind of the tone that it sets and what it says to others and how you think about others, more on that in a bit. So I got on a plane, flew home, and really wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do with it, and it was starting to slip my mind again. And then I went to another ball game. Nick had a game maybe a day or two after I got home, and it was a different umpire. And he walked over to home plate, had a little pep in his step, seemed like a nice guy, and the first thing he did is completely cleaned every single corner of that plate. That thing was gleaming white. Then he got behind home plate. He said, "Play ball." He can see balls and strikes. The batter knows where the strike zone is, the pitcher, everybody, and he kept it clean throughout. And he seemed attentive. All of it kind of rises or falls together, and called a good game. And it was right there I thought, okay, well, Will's idea just keeps coming up. I definitely want to record it. So at this point, you don't need me to do a setup. You know what we're talking about in terms of the plate and baseball and the team and how there are a lot of people involved. And there are some things you can do to show that you care. Small initial things that make a big difference. And that's kind of where we're going today. But here's something I feel like we need to say at the very beginning. This episode is for people who care. You care how you impact those around you. You care about the kind of job that you do. You care about laying some seemingly insignificant initial groundwork that you may need to rely on later, maybe after you make a mistake or two. We'll talk some about that. This podcast, however, will be difficult for someone who walks in a room and just doesn't care. I don't really care what people think about what I do. It's not important to me to show anyone in any way that they matter. I really hope that's not you, because if it is, you may use a few of these things to try to make a better impression, but it will probably just be because you want something. And that's manipulation, where you go, look, I don't care about the teams. I don't really care about the balls and strikes. I just want to get my $100 bill. But I'm going to go ahead and clean this plate because it makes it look like I'm taking this seriously. And that's really not good. I mean, I guess to someone like that, I could say, look, why don't you fake it till you make it? Do some proper things and maybe it'll feed back. But more than that, I'm just going to ask you, before we even get into our applications, I just want to ask you to think about Jesus for a minute. This is not a sermon. I don't have a Bible anywhere near me today. We're not going to dive into Scripture. But if you are a Christian, it means you want to be like Christ. Christ was a light in every place. He is the light of the world. When he was among those who were spiritual and religious, he was a light of learning for them. When he was among those who were ungodly and misguided, he was a light of direction to them. It was sometimes small things, but he intentionally wanted to relate to people. He intentionally wanted to build the right kinds of connection to people, even though it may not seem like much. That made me think of John 4 with the woman at the well in Samaria. He could have easily shown no concern for her, had no conversation with her, and she and many others would not have been saved. But he cared. It mattered. He was always in a place of understanding that I'm trying to help others. And so he did a few small things in the beginning, and it led to big things in the end. So I'm going to assume for the rest of the episode that you're like me. You do care, but you just forget sometimes. Or you just have mannerisms that sometimes disregard things that are happening around you. And so people think that you don't care about the job you're doing or what they're getting out of it or how you're helping. You want it to be better. I do. And I think Will's idea, cleaning the plate, is a great place to start. It's imagery we can all remember. So let's get into a few specific things that you can put into action today. So let me start with a couple of Will's points. He said, look, number one, hold yourself accountable. You're at the ballpark. You're there with a job to do. Others are counting on you and relying on you. You're trying to create the best situation you can for everybody to do their thing. Home plate is super crucial. It's the beginning and end point of pretty much everything you're out there to do. Hold yourself accountable to do the things you need to do to make it good, even though many of them will be small. The idea of being accountable for your part in any room or event or activity, being a part of a church or a business or a family, accountability isn't always major things. An umpire doesn't stand up and give a 5-minute speech of the great oath he took to do the best that he can. He just dusts off the plate. He sets the stage with things that seem small, but they're not. So the idea here is to hold yourself responsible in any room you walk in to seeing what are the things I can say or do that express to others that I'm astute, I'm aware, I'm awake. I know that I'm in here with you and I recognize you and I really want to give a nod of respect. Now here's the thing, and I want to mix in something from that old 2019 episode. D. Bowman wrote a book called Be Wise Small. And to me, Will's idea, Dee's idea, they just come together perfectly. The things that we do to show that we're taking accountability are often really small things that a lot of other people overlook. They don't take long to do. They're not hard to do. You just have to remember to do them, have some desire to do them, and recognize that they will be observed by others. And you're not using that as an advantage for yourself. You're using it because you care. I can remember from way back then, Dee gave examples like when you're walking in the park and you see a piece of trash on the ground. How many people walk around that piece of trash? You bend down, you pick it up, you put it in the garbage can. You're being wise. You're doing the right thing, the kind and thoughtful thing whether people are observing or not, and it's small, but life and respect for others in this world or accountability is filled with a bunch of little decisions, just some trash that you picked up here or there, or the time that you made sure that people could see the plate. Summer and I were talking about this morning. I'll give you a few examples we came up with. Some of our best friends in the world, Scott and Jenny Murph, were at our house recently, and I noticed that Scott walked through our kitchen area and there were just a couple of dishes. I mean, a couple of dishes and a couple of cups. They weren't even his dishes or cups, and they were just sitting there. Most of the stuff had already been placed inside the dishwasher, which he'd never really worked with before. He doesn't visit all that often. They live a ways away, but it wasn't started. So he turns on the water, rinses the plates and cups, puts them in the dishwasher, and goes about his business. I saw him do it. He certainly didn't even do it to be seen. It's just the wise, respectful thing to do. And I'm looking over there going, what a jerk. Like, he's just trying to make me look bad. No, I let that feeling go. That was only like 2 seconds. But mainly I looked at him and I thought, I need to be more like that. It's just a small moment of recognition that you can help, that you're here to help, that you want to help, and that you care about the work or effort that others are making. So one of my first challenges for you is what you do when you walk inside your own home. Don't miss an opportunity to show a small amount of accountability, to do that kind thing that's easy to walk around because you go, well, it's not a big deal. It's just a couple of plates. Somebody will get it later. Well, maybe they will, maybe they won't, but what if you do? One of the big lessons here is that people are watching. You think about the umpire doing that. I was watching the one who didn't, the one who did, and it gave me this sense of this impression of them. And I want the kids to see an umpire that takes things seriously. And it's the kids I want to talk about for a minute. I can't remember this morning if Summer was talking about a book she was reading or maybe a ladies' study that she does. They have a co-op on Monday and the ladies meet and talk about things. But she was talking about putting up your shopping cart in the grocery store parking lot. And that parents, when they're done, shouldn't just leave their cart wherever. They should go put it back where it goes. Why? Well, you go accountability. Well, accountability, it's a shopping cart. What does that matter? Well, if you think about it, it matters a lot. Number one, your kids. Your kids need to see you do those small, wise things that says, look, this is my cart. I brought it out. I'm going to put it back. I'm not entitled. It's not, well, eggs were a lot more expensive than they used to be, so I'm not going to put the cart back this time. Or our meal was higher than it was before. I'm not going to tip this person. Like, who am I if that's the way I process my decisions? So you go put it back, you make things easier on the person who comes to retrieve them, and you actually show a lot of respect for, and you're actually demonstrating a large amount of respect in every direction with a simple thing like that. Now, again, going back to what I said, maybe you're like, I don't care. I don't care about what my kids see. I don't care about what it means. Well, then, like, we need to talk, I think. I mean, we've got to get back to Christ. But this podcast is for Christians who just sometimes forget or just need a little bit of guidance and a remembrance of how big little things can be. Let me give you one more really cool example on this, and Summer reminded me of this morning. Our son-in-law, Braden, back a handful of years ago, he was at school here in the area. We did not know him, and he was at an intern-like thing at the school for surveying. And so a handful of companies show up, and they get to interview all the different guys, and they're looking for someone. And one of our elders, Kyle Curry, was there. He's pretty high up in a company called SAM, a surveying company. And he hired Braden as one of his employees or interns or whatever it was at that point in his schooling. I didn't know any of this. This was a few days before we met Braden. He actually came to church that Wednesday night, and I introduced him to my daughter, and things have kind of been going on since then. They're about to have a baby. They've been married for a few years now. But later, Kyle was like, hey, that's the guy we just hired. And I was like, okay, well, looks like they're dating a little bit, so what can you tell me about him? He said, I'll tell you this. Here we are at this room. We're having these refreshments or meal or something, and everybody's done, and everybody's kind of saying bye, the intern prospects and the company people. And he said, I see Braden. Everybody's clearing out, and Braden is walking around the room to tables, picking up the trash and the cups and throwing them away. And he said, that's the guy I'm hiring. So a lot like the story of Scott at my house, it's like, wait a minute, that's a guy you can count on. That's somebody who's going to, as we say today, clean the plate, have some accountability, and just try to do the things that help everybody out, which is really cool. I don't remember the last time he did anything at our house, but no, I'm kidding. He's actually pretty amazing. So one more kind of back-end thought on this. Our front-end thought, I think we've exhausted quite well about be wise small, show accountability, take responsibility, do the things that you can, be mindful. But also I want to talk about, because Will brought this up, this helps you later when you make mistakes. Nobody gets it right every time, but when we do things that are good, it stores up a level of rapport. When we take our job seriously, it stores up some things that we can rely on when we make inevitable mistakes. Will told the story about a game. He was umping, and of course he greets both teams, and he tries to be kind and fair, and he cleans the plate, and he's doing all the things right. And there was a call at home plate, and he said, I think I missed it. I mean, I saw what I saw, and I called this girl out, and like their team, and I don't think they'd ever won a game. They were losing by a bunch, and they just wanted that one run or something like that. And he said, man, I saw it out. And boy, they really made a ruckus. And I don't remember if it was in that few minutes moments, or I think it was after the game, but he went up to the coach afterwards, maybe some parents, and he said, look, guys, I think I missed that call. I'm really sorry. Tell the kid I'm sorry, and I'll try to do better later. And he said, look, they were mad at me in the moment. Everybody gets fired up in the moment. But I think over the months or over the years, I'd built enough respect with them. They knew that I cared about the kids, and they knew that I was doing my best, that they pretty immediately let me off the hook and were kind about it. And that story takes me back to the two umpires I've seen recently. Here's a guy who barely moves at all and isn't even willing to show us where home plate is. And if he misses a call, I'm going to be like, yeah, of course he did. This guy doesn't care. And I'm going to be a lot more argumentative versus someone who's trying to do all the right things. And clearly this is important because he knows that it matters to everybody around him, and he misses a call. His attitude will be better, hopefully. And, you would just give them more the benefit of the doubt because you know that they're trying. And that's all we're really talking about here. We're talking about trying. So I don't know what the application is. Maybe it's about you when you're with your family at home or where you work, but be someone who's working hard to do the right things, someone who's thinking outside of themselves. If someone is always mindless about others and just kind of going around doing their own thing and they make a series of mistakes, they can say, well, I'm trying, but you're like, okay, but shouldn't that trying in some way be a reward to those around you, at least some of the time? And I think we can do even better than that. I think we clean those plates. I think we get the calls right when we can. I think we're kind to people in both dugouts. What that means at home is you pick up things that are on the floor, you do a couple of dishes, you get the coffee ready for the next morning, even though it's not usually your job. I think at church, it's greeting people who aren't usually greeted or just taking a few extra minutes to try to make someone feel comfortable. It says, look, I understand. I understand that there are right things that a lot of people walk right past, and I'm not going to do that. And then when you make a mistake, and you will, maybe you're not an umpire, so we'll leave that example behind, but at home, you do something that you shouldn't do, or something that you said you would do, that you took on and you forgot. And there's just a whole lot more grace for someone who generally operates without the focus entirely on themselves. Because you know how that is. If someone does something selfish, but you generally believe them to be a selfish person, it's just another negative thought about someone that you're distancing yourself from. But if someone is generally selfless, even on the small scale, just sort of consistently mindful of others, then we have a lot more compassion when they're having a bad week. So as we close here, Will gave me his 3 points. I think they're great. Hold yourself accountable, work hard, admit when you're wrong, and all those things will work together to better outcomes than they would have been. For me, I'd go back to D. Bowman, wrap it around everything Will says, and just be wise, small, consistently. And in every group you approach, or baseball diamond you walk on, or church building or home you walk in, look for something small and kind you can do early on to set the tone for the care that you have for the people around you. What does that look like? Well, maybe even in the kitchen you can use today's title, but at least figuratively look for opportunities to clean the plate. Thank you for joining in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment and share it with a friend. Speaking of friends, I just want to thank once again John Cunningham and the Cunningham Financial Group for sponsoring this podcast. If you have financial planning needs, give him a call today, 205-326-7364. And always remember, whatever you do in the name of Jesus Christ, excel still more.